Hi everyone, welcome to the Dynamic Color Picker tutorial series. In this tutorial, we are going to use Blueprint to apply the color from the color picker to any material section of the mesh placed in the viewport in runtime. Let's create a player controller class. Player controller can be a good starting point to demonstrate the application of the color palettes and the color picker to change the color of any static or skeletal meshes. So here I want to select any mesh from the viewport, and when the mesh is selected, I want the color spectrum widget to appear. I'm going to call the function getResult under cursor for objects. I am only interested in setting the color properties for the world static objects, so I will add that as an object type. Here I'm going to add a branch condition to check if there is any blocking hit. Now let's quickly see if this is giving the correct results by adding a print string. To add this player controller, first we need to create a custom game mode. And in the player controller class, I will add the selection controller that we created. Yes, so this works. I am getting the correct mesh name when I am hovering my mouse on a particular mesh. When the left mouse button is clicked, I want the mesh to be selected and the color spectrum widget to pop up. So these were the nodes I created earlier to add our widget to the viewport, and I copied them over here. And we are going to set the player controller's input mode in the begin play itself. I also want to remove the color picker when the tab is pressed. So first I need to set this color picker widget to a variable. So here I will just call remove from parent, and this is going to remove the color picker widget when the tab is pressed. Now in our widget blueprint, I want to create two event dispatchers. The first one is on color changed, which is going to pass the color being changed to our player controller. And second one is on color cancel. When you click the cancel button, the previous color will be sent to the player controller instead. So for each of these, the input is going to be a color parameter. I also need to create an event dispatcher for the color palette, because first I need to handle the on color change for the color palette and pass the color information to the color picker UMG. So now you can access the on color changed event for the color palette in this UMG as well, and I will simply call the event dispatcher that we just created and pass the color value. I will now handle the on color changed event of the color spectrum as well similarly. In our selection controller blueprint, I am going to bind the on color changed event of the color picker widget. Here I will set the hit component to a variable. When the color is changed, I will call this function apply color to mesh material and pass the current hit component as the mesh component. This function is going to take any static or skeletal mesh, and you can pass the parameter name as well as the material index as well, and it is going to set the color of the material parameter with the given parameter name. Let's take an example of this particular material. So here the parameter name is color, and we will create instances out of it, and we can assign them to the meshes that we want to change the color parameter of. Also, for multiple materials, we cannot just detect the mesh component. We also need to detect the index of the material section that is being hit. For that, I have created this function get mesh under cursor. This is a custom function that is a part of this plugin. So you can simply connect the hit result, and you're also saving this material index into a variable, and you're passing this variable in here when you're applying the color to the material. Okay, we have this issue now when the color is automatically changing the first time the color picker appears. For that, in the color channel widget, I first set the manual update to false. And when the slider value is changing, I'm first checking if the manual update is true. Then only I am triggering the value changed event. I am applying similar logic in the circular color picker as well, and also in the color palette widget, so that it does not get automatically updated the first time when it is being constructed. Let's implement the functionalities for OK and cancel buttons as well. So when I'm pressing OK, I simply need to call the function remove from parent that removes this current widget from the viewport. And when I'm clicking the cancel button, it first calls the on color changed event and passes the initial color so that the color gets reverted back, and then it removes the widget from the parent. If the widget is getting removed, I need a way to add that back, of course. I will just add a button here. Clicking that is going to add the Spectrum UI back. So in the construct event, let's remove the color spectrum from the parent so that it is not visible initially. And when you're clicking on the button more colors, I will add that back in the color spectrum border, which is basically containing this color spectrum UI. So I will just call this function add child and pass the color spectrum as content. In the circular color picker widget, I will add this event to set the initial color. You can manually call this event from anywhere and set the initial color. It doesn't have to be in the construct script. So here, after calling the add child when the more colors button is pressed, I'm also calling this event initialize widget and passing the initial color. So this I have set as instant editable and expose on spawn. So this is visible over here. Now if you want, you can also pass the material color itself as the initial color, and for that I made this function get material parameter color value. You can use this to get the current value of the material parameter when you are passing the mesh component as well as the current index, and that becomes the initial color. Okay, let's test out the functionality. So I can change the color with the color palette, and on clicking more color, the color spectrum appears, and I'm also able to change the color in the color spectrum correctly, and that change is reflected in the material. When I hit cancel, the previous color returns that I had set from the color palette. When I hit OK, the new color returns. So everything works as expected. So that's it for today's tutorial, and this plugin is currently available in the Fab Marketplace. The link is given in the description. Get it now, and I will see you in the next video.